Cole Harrington's name was often whispered in elite circles, the scion of a massive financial empire, the mastermind behind Harrington Holdings. At 31, he had already appeared on multiple richest under 35 lists, garnered praise for philanthropic gestures, and sparked endless fascination among the press. Yet behind the flash of cameras and the swirl of dinner galas, Cole felt increasingly suffocated. Every handshake seemed angled to glean favors, every potential friend or romantic partner arced swiftly toward gold digging or social climbing. Late one night, at the pinnacle of frustration, he found himself staring at the city skyline from his penthouse, heart pounding with an unshakable emptiness. The surface-level adoration and the constant jockeying for his attention left him hollow. Was it possible that no one would ever see him as Cole the person rather than Cole the billionaire? He confided in only one confidant, Daniel, his longtime personal assistant and friend. Daniel knew intimately how Cole had nearly lost faith in genuine relationships. "So you're planning some kind of secret identity?" Daniel asked, smirking incredulously. "That sounds like a script from a rom-com." Cole shrugged, pacing the penthouse's polished marble floor. "If I don't do this, I'll never know who cares about me versus my fortune. I just want a few weeks, maybe a month, somewhere low-key, living as an average guy. No private jet, no chauffeur, minimal credit card use. See who crosses my path." Daniel laughed, shaking his head but not disagreeing. "All right, boss, I'll manage the empire from behind the scenes. But remember, you can't fully vanish. We still need to maintain your deals, albeit discreetly." Cole nodded, determined. If this insane plan let him see beyond sycophants, it might be worth it. Through a business contact, he found a downtown district known for its artsy vibe, run down in spots but vibrant with creativity. Cole leased a modest studio apartment on the top floor of a creaky old brick building. No doorman, no elaborate security, just a single key, peeling wallpaper, and a cramped kitchenette. The landlord, unaware of Cole's real identity, simply saw him as a prospective tenant who claimed to be between jobs. On move-in day, Cole arrived in casual clothes, hair slightly disheveled, a single suitcase in hand. Gone was the usual polished entourage or black SUV. He wanted anonymity, leaving behind half his wardrobe and all but one of his high-end watches. To any neighbor peeking through a dusty corridor door, he'd seem like any 30-something with uncertain finances. Daniel, half laughing at the gritty surroundings, dropped off a second box of personal effects. "Sure you'll survive no housekeeping staff or catered meals?" he joked. Cole merely smirked. "I can handle instant noodles." Once Daniel left, Cole sat on the worn couch, exhaling slowly. A sense of freedom and trepidation wrapped around him. No more glamorous illusions. Now he was just Cole, a man searching for genuine human connection. In the days that followed, Cole settled into his new routine. Gone were the private chefs and personal trainers. Instead, he navigated the cramped kitchenette, rummaging for recipes online, bungling basic tasks like boiling pasta or seasoning chicken. More than once, smoke alarms shrilled in the hallway, prompting him to fling open windows in embarrassment. He also realized how seldom he'd used public transportation. With a grin, he braved the local bus system, riding among the daily hustle, students lugging backpacks, exhausted nurses finishing night shifts, casual laborers dozing off in seats. No one recognized him or cared about his background. The anonymity exhilarated him. Occasionally, he still had to check in with Daniel about business deals, but they kept it stealthy. Video calls late at night, minimal footprints. Daniel handled day-to-day decisions with the Harrington Holdings management team, ensuring no suspicious rumors spread about Cole's disappearance. The staff believed he was on a prolonged sabbatical. Cole's building sat near a lively intersection thronged with secondhand stores, cheap eateries, and street art. He strolled the sidewalks in worn jeans, observing the swirl of real life rarely visible from his chauffeured perspective. Moms juggling kids, old men perched on stoops discussing local news, the hum of corner groceries hawking fresh produce. He found it refreshing to see transactions revolve around everyday struggles. Coupons at the checkout, neighbors exchanging leftover pastries, local kids raising funds for a battered playground. No suits, no big deals, just people forging life with grit and compassion. He introduced himself politely to neighbors. Ms. Ramos, a retired teacher living across the hall, who immediately offered homemade tamales. Yusef, a college student balancing two part-time jobs, and the building superintendent Garcia, who teased Cole about being too nice for a newbie. In these chance connections, Cole felt a slow thaw in his cynicism. He recognized the complexities of ordinary living, paying bills on tight budgets, finding joy in simple moments. The billionaire bubble he'd inhabited all his life seemed distant. On a breezy Saturday morning, Cole explored further, wandering aimlessly until the faint smell of turpentine and acrylics lured him to a side street. A sign reading Creative Haven hung above an old storefront with paint-splattered windows. Curious, he peeked inside. It turned out to be a community art studio, offering open classes and space rentals. Through the large windows, he saw a handful of students stationed at easels, the air thick with the aroma of fresh paint and inspiration. A wave of interest tugged at Cole's heart. He'd never dabbled in painting, but something about the welcoming environment felt captivating. Pushing open the door, he stepped in, scanning canvases in various stages of completion. Bright sunlight streamed through overhead skylights, illuminating swirling brushstrokes of color. A few heads turned, some nodded greetings, but everyone seemed absorbed in their own creative flow. He was about to quietly circle the perimeter when he glimpsed a woman who transfixed him. She stood at a corner easel, Vera Martin, painting with utter focus, a cityscape shimmering with bold, vibrant hues. She wore battered overalls, her dark hair twisted in a messy bun. Specks of paint flecked her cheeks and arms. She radiated raw passion. Cole lingered near her easel, enthralled by the interplay of swirling clouds and skyscrapers on her canvas. He admired how she captured both the city's grandeur and a sense of intangible longing. She was so immersed that it took a moment for her to register his presence. "Oh," she exclaimed, turning, brush still in hand. Paint flecks dotted her skin. "Didn't see you." A blush tinted her cheeks. "You can walk around if you like. It's an open session." Her voice was kind, if a bit shy. "Thanks," Cole replied, smiling. "Your piece is mesmerizing. It's like you've tapped into the city's energy." Surprised, she laughed lightly, wiping her brush on a rag. "I'm just a student here, still learning." She sized him up. He looked slightly out of place, but not in an arrogant way. She had no clue about his disguised identity. The instructor called a short break, so Vera set down her palette. Cole, forging his usual confidence, introduced himself simply as Cole. Vera responded with her name, fiddling with a loose strap of her overalls. They chatted about the painting, how she found city lights inspiring yet lonely. He resonated with that sense of metropolitan isolation, but didn't elaborate. Before leaving, he asked if she'd be willing to show him around the local art scene. She seemed pleasantly surprised. "Sure, I love guiding people to the hidden gems." Her shy but genuine smile stirred a warm flutter in Cole's chest. He walked out, heart oddly light. Something about Vera's unguarded dedication to art, her humility, drew him. He resolved to see her again, though half wondered if this broke-guy facade might complicate things. As the weeks passed, Cole embraced the role of a modest man between jobs. He told new acquaintances, including Vera, that he'd once worked for a small family firm, but parted ways after a downsizing. She accepted it without judgment. In her eyes, he was a friendly neighbor who occasionally did odd freelance tasks on his laptop to pay bills. They began hanging out sporadically. Sometimes he'd stop by Creative Haven while she painted, quietly admiring her progress. Other times they'd share a coffee from a hole-in-the-wall cafe, swapping small talk about local events. Vera impressed him with her generosity. She'd covered his coffee more than once, brushing off his thanks with a grin and a "Don't worry, the next time's on you." One day, they wandered to a park bench with a modest view of the river, gulping cheap sandwiches for lunch. She teased him about accidentally wearing mismatched socks. He still wasn't used to doing his laundry in a communal building machine. He teased her about the green paint smudge near her ear. Their banter felt lighthearted, disarmingly genuine. Yet Cole sensed deeper layers in Vera, a subdued fear about finances, a drive to succeed despite obstacles. More than once, she sighed about how, without a big break, she might never sustain a living purely on art. Still, she faced the challenge with unwavering spirit. That resilience intrigued Cole, whose entire life was paved with enormous resources. He found her unwavering belief in the power of creativity refreshing, a stark contrast to the polished cunning of corporate sharks. Cole discovered that just being a normal guy was trickier than expected. He glimpsed the heartbreak of having no safety net if rent was late or if a medical expense popped up. He also had to juggle secret phone calls with Daniel, ensuring Harrington Holdings didn't suspect the boss was living incognito. Meanwhile, Vera occasionally caught fleeting glimpses of his more refined tastes, like the moment he instinctively recommended an expensive brand of wine while grocery shopping. She laughed, finding it odd that a broke ex-employee had such knowledge of fine wine. He shrugged it off, claiming he used to watch fancy cooking shows, but each slip-up threatened to unravel the illusions. Despite the tension, their friendship deepened. Late-night texts about random art memes or rants about city noise turned into heartfelt confessions about personal fears. She learned he struggled with something he wouldn't fully name. She guessed heartbreak or family drama, and offered unwavering empathy. For Cole, it was the first time in memory that someone liked him without even suspecting he had enormous wealth. One chilly afternoon, Vera invited Cole to her current apartment, a cramped space barely bigger than his studio, cluttered with half-finished canvases and assorted paint supplies. She apologized for the mess, but he found it charmingly authentic. A secondhand couch doubled as her bed, an easel dominated the center of the living room, and any surface not used for painting was stacked with art references and unfinished sketches. He listened quietly as she described her hustle, a part-time job at a local bookstore that barely covered her share of rent, plus painting commissions from occasional children's book illustrations. She had droves of unpublished sketches, waiting for a chance to be displayed at a small gallery or local fair. But pay was inconsistent, and her landlord had begun raising rent, leaving her anxious. Cole, stifling the urge to wave a magic check to solve her woes, asked how she coped. Vera gave a small, brave smile. I just keep painting, keep pitching my portfolio, hoping for a bigger break. I won't stop creating. It's all I have. Someday I'll hold my own gallery show, even if it's a modest one. He admired that fierce determination. In his world, a single phone call could open doors. She had to pry them open with sheer grit. He offered moral support, praising her artistry. She beamed, admitting how her family found her dream too risky, pushing her toward a normal career. But that's not me, she said softly, eyes shining. I can't imagine giving up art. That night, Cole couldn't sleep, thinking about how easily he could transform Vera's situation. One call to an influential gallery director, one small donation funneled into an arts fund, or simply paying her rent. But doing so would betray the entire experiment, possibly humiliating her and undermining the sincerity of their bond. He wrestled with the guilt of letting her struggle while he had millions in the bank. He told Daniel about his dilemma the next day in a hushed phone call. Daniel suggested a covert approach, paying the rent anonymously or commissioning her artwork under a fake client. Cole mulled it over, torn. If Vera discovered the deception, it might crush her trust. But if he did nothing, she could lose her apartment. For now, he decided to hold off. Perhaps if an urgent crisis arose, he'd intervene discreetly, but he prayed it wouldn't come to that. One weekend, Vera asked if Cole wanted to try painting. Amused yet curious, he agreed, meeting her at Creative Haven after hours. She handed him a spare canvas, guiding him on basic color mixing. Laughter spilled as his initial brushstrokes produced muddy hues, but she patiently corrected him, praising small victories. He felt oddly vulnerable, never having done something so purely creative without a business angle. They listened to soft indie music, the overhead lights subdued. She told him about her favorite surrealist painters, how color can express hidden emotions. He found it mesmerizing to watch her in her element, passionate, fearless, lost in expression. At one point, they paused to compare each other's progress. His comedic attempt at a city skyline looked shaky but heartfelt, hers luminous as always. She teased him for missing perspective on building lines. He teased back that maybe they'd fetch a fortune just because it was abstract. They parted that night, arms splattered with paint, hearts equally smudged with the possibility of love. Their bond began skirting the edges of friendship and romance. They'd walk home together, shoulders sometimes brushing, conversation laced with unspoken tension. She'd open up about her childhood joys, like drawing chalk murals in her parents' driveway, and he'd share glimpses of a more privileged youth that left him bored until he discovered investment strategy at 14. She teased him about being a teenage stock wizard. He teased her about presumably painting cartoon giraffes at the same age. Both recognized the slow burn attraction, but remained cautious. Cole worried that unveiling his wealth might scare her off. Vera hesitated to push, uncertain if he was ready for a deeper relationship, given the pain she sensed in him. One evening, after a modest dinner at a local diner, they found themselves on her apartment steps. The crisp night air made them linger, neither wanting to say goodbye. He reached for her hand, eyes earnest. She let him gently trace his thumb across her knuckles. The unspoken question, could they become more? Her eyes fluttered closed, a softness passing between them, until a neighbor's door clanged open, breaking the moment. They parted with a shy laugh, each filled with an unnamed longing. One weekend, Vera called Cole, voice frantic. Her father had been hospitalized out of state. She needed money to travel and help her mother, but her recent paycheck was delayed. Gray's heart lurched. This was the exact scenario he dreaded. He could easily cover her travel, lodging, hospital bills, but that would reveal his hidden fortune. Yet letting her flounder felt unconscionable. She admitted tears on the phone, saying, "I just need to borrow some money for a bus ticket, maybe a cheap motel near the hospital. I hate asking, but I have no one else to turn to." Cole inhaled, a swirl of relief that she trusted him enough to ask. "I'll help," he said gently, each word weighted. He rummaged in his desk, pulling out a wad of cash from his personal emergency stash. "Let me bring it over right now." She insisted on promising to pay him back, disclaiming how it was just a loan. He agreed, even though he had no intention of taking her money. En route to her place, he considered revealing his identity. Maybe it was time. Then again, he feared overshadowing her independence right when she felt vulnerable. At her door, she opened it with puffy eyes and a small suitcase half-packed. He handed her enough to cover a round-trip bus ticket and lodging for a week. She trembled with gratitude, hugging him fiercely. "You're a lifesaver," she whispered. He pressed his cheek to her hair, whispering, "Call me anytime. I'm here for anything." When Vera left for her father's hospital, Cole felt unsettled. He'd proven he'd help her in a pinch, but it was still a fraction of what he could do if she knew the truth. Each day, they texted updates. Her father stabilized, requiring ongoing care. She planned to return after ensuring her mother was okay. But in her absence, Cole realized how deeply he missed her presence. The jokes, the painting sessions, the everyday warmth. He recognized with startling clarity that he was in love. The question remained, would that love endure once she discovered the real Cole Harrington? He confided in Daniel, who urged him to come clean. "Better now than if she hears it from someone else," Daniel warned. "The press might pick up on your little sabbatical eventually." Cole frowned. "I know. I'll find the right moment." But fate had its own plans. 2 weeks later, Vera returned, exhausted from hospital vigils. Cole rushed to see her, arms loaded with groceries and a heartfelt note. She seemed relieved yet subdued. Over a quiet meal in her apartment, she thanked him for the financial lifeline. "I'll pay back every penny," she insisted. He tried to wave it off. "No rush." Then, summoning courage, he added, "Vera, there's something I need to tell you." Before he could continue, her phone buzzed. A friend from the art studio was calling about a small exhibit opportunity. She lit up, scheduling a meeting. The moment for his confession slipped away. He decided to wait for a calmer time. But life had a twist in store. One day, an acquaintance from Cole's real world, Alina, a philanthropic event planner, strolled into Creative Haven to discuss a possible partnership. She recognized Cole from across the studio, addressing him with a flippant, "Mr. Harrington, I didn't know you came here." Her face registered confusion at his common attire. Vera, mid-painting, overheard. She froze, brush in hand. "Harrington? As in Harrington Holdings?" She turned to Cole, heart hammering. The entire room fell silent. Cole's face paled. The cat was out of the bag. He stammered, "Vera, I can explain." but she bristled, rage and hurt blazing. So you're a Harrington? A billionaire, not just an out-of-work freelancer? You've been lying this entire time? Alina, sensing the tension, muttered an apology and slunk away. Cole tried to approach Vera, but she stepped back, tears forming. I told you my struggles, my fear of moochers, and you, all along, you lied about being poor? She shook her head, voice trembling. All those times I confided in you, it was built on a lie. He swallowed, shame choking him. Let me explain. It wasn't about watching you struggle. I wanted someone who cared for me, not my bank account. Then I met you, and it all changed. I was scared to lose what we had if you knew. She let out a bitter laugh. So you tested me? Played me for a fool? I confided in you about rent, about my father's hospital bills, and you pretended you had only a few bucks to spare. He reached out, desperate. Vera, I never wanted to hurt you. My feelings are genuine. Everything we shared, that was real. Tears slipped down her cheeks. The entire studio watched uncomfortably. She spat. Real? You let me bare my soul while you kept a huge secret. That's not real. Snatching her bag, she stormed out, leaving Cole in stunned agony. The hush in the studio pressed on him, guilt festering like a wound. Reeling from the disastrous confrontation, Cole withdrew to his penthouse, the plan to live broke, abandoned. The newspapers soon caught wind of Cole Harrington's incognito adventure, fueled by a slip from Alina's circle. The press spun it as a bizarre social experiment. Some tabloids insinuated he was mocking the poor. Despair weighed on him. He'd give anything to see Vera again, to apologize, to prove his sincerity. But each time he texted or called, no reply. He tried going by her apartment, but neighbors said she'd left for a short art retreat. The emptiness of the penthouse suffocated him more than ever. Days stretched into weeks. Cole poured his heart into letters, explaining every detail. His fear of gold diggers, his desperation to connect, the guilt of letting her scrape by when he could have helped. He wrote that he never once laughed at her struggles, that each moment spent with her was the most real thing he'd known. He insisted he was ready to support her art in any way she chose, but only if she wanted it. He mailed them, uncertain if she'd read them. He asked Daniel to discreetly keep tabs on her well-being. Daniel reported that she was lying low, rumored to be focusing on painting for a possible gallery show. She'd told the landlord she might move soon if her finances didn't improve. Cole's heart clenched, powerless to fix it without further betrayal. Then came a ray of hope. Daniel informed Cole that a small local gallery had scheduled an exhibit featuring emerging artists, including Vera Martin. Cole seized on it as a final chance to see her, even if from afar. He dreaded being unwelcome, but he refused to let her biggest moment pass without at least standing in support. The night of the exhibit, Cole arrived wearing a modest suit, no entourage. The gallery, a renovated loft space, buzzed with onlookers and critics. Paintings lined the walls, sculptures dotted corners. A hush of creative energy filled the air. Cole recognized a table near the entrance, listing the names of showcased artists, Vera Martin prominent among them. He navigated the throng until he found Vera's section. A large canvas dominated her display, a cityscape reminiscent of her earlier style, but with deeper emotional layers. Swaths of color portrayed both the city's soaring ambition and the raw vulnerability she'd faced. Cole was entranced. It was heartbreakingly beautiful. The crowd parted, revealing Vera herself, looking elegant in a simple black dress, hair pinned up, expression guarded as she spoke to a curious viewer. Then her eyes slid to Cole, and her face stiffened. The viewer excused themselves. She stepped toward Cole, posture taut. "Why are you here?" she asked, voice low but intense. He swallowed hard. "Because I believe in you. I had to see your art, to stand with you in some way." She exhaled, glancing at the painting. "Your letters, I read them. I'm still angry, Cole. You let me confide in you about my father's hospital bills while you hid your means. You watched me scrounge to keep the lights on, all the while living in a penthouse." Regret twisted his features. "I never meant for you to suffer. I was terrified that if I revealed my wealth, you'd think everything was a lie, that we connected only because I could fix your problems. I wanted you to see me as just a man, not a billionaire." Tears glistened in her eyes. "You should have trusted me enough to decide for myself. I thought we were forging something real, but it was built on deception." A short hush fell. Nearby patrons eyed them curiously, sensing tension. Cole whispered, "I'm sorry. If you never forgive me, I understand. But let me say, nothing about my feelings was fake. I love you, Vera. You showed me how to see life beyond spreadsheets. I vow to respect your boundaries." She blinked at his admission of love. The raw vulnerability shook her. Yet the memory of nights painting side by side, the kindness in his eyes when she was anxious, the affection that had been blossoming, it all gnawed at her defenses. She parted her lips to respond, but a well-dressed couple approached, exclaiming interest in buying her painting. She took a deep breath, turning to the couple. They complimented the emotional depth of her cityscape, praising its bold color and hidden sorrow. Vera's voice shook with surprise as they offered a substantial sum. For an artist living on the brink, it was a life-changing sale. She tried to maintain composure, finalizing details with the gallery manager. Cole watched from a short distance, heart pounding with pride for her. The crowd erupted in applause as news spread of the high bid, marking Vera's name as an emerging star of the show. She looked both elated and overwhelmed, tears slipping down her cheeks as she realized the breakthrough she'd yearned for was here. When the couple moved on, she turned back to Cole. He saw relief, confusion, lingering anger. The swirl of emotion reflected on her face like the swirling city lights in her painting. "I guess my painting found a home," she murmured, voice unsteady. He nodded, stepping closer. "Because you deserve it. You're brilliant." For a heartbeat, their gazes locked, each uncertain how to proceed. Then, with a trembling exhalation, she said, "Cole, we can't just act like the lies didn't happen, but part of me also can't ignore that you've shown me more genuine support than anyone else. Maybe I can't wrap my head around the billionaire part yet, but I can't erase all those memories of you helping me, comforting me, inspiring me." He swallowed, eyes misting. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust again." She gave a shaky smile. "I can't promise an immediate fix, but I don't want to lose what we had either. Let's see where honesty takes us." Slowly. Relief flooded him, tears pricking his eyes. He nodded vigorously, words failing as joy and gratitude swelled. They tentatively embraced, a gentle meeting of hearts that signaled the first step of mending a broken bond. The onlookers, clueless to the backstory, saw only an emotional moment between the artist of the night and a man who seemed to care deeply. Applause rose anew, overshadowing the silent tears they shared. In the subsequent weeks, Cole carefully navigated his life as both CEO of Harrington Holdings and a man in love with a talented but scarred artist. Vera took time to adjust, alternating between cautious acceptance and bursts of residual hurt. She found it surreal to see him juggling global conference calls, wearing suits that cost more than her monthly rent, all while insisting he wanted to remain deeply grounded in her world. At times, she felt overshadowed. Who was she but a small-time painter, dwarfed by a vast empire? He assured her that her worth wasn't tied to finance or connections. He offered to sponsor new canvases or get her a better studio, but she drew boundaries. She wanted to progress on her own terms, albeit now with a supportive partner. Their arguments flared occasionally. She'd accuse him of not understanding the stress of living paycheck to paycheck, while he'd bristle at her assumption he was oblivious to real struggles. But these skirmishes gradually gave way to deeper conversations, bridging the gulf between their worlds. Despite the friction, they discovered synergy. When Cole expanded a philanthropic wing of Harrington Holdings to support emerging artists, he sought Vera's input on how to structure grants. She, though wary, agreed to share insights from her vantage as a struggling creative, helping shape a fair selection process. He marveled at her knowledge, while she admired his willingness to invest in something beyond personal profit. They also found romantic pockets of time, an impromptu weekend trip to a scenic coastal town, where Vera doodled seaside landscapes while Cole read financial updates on a battered beach chair, or cozy nights in her newly upgraded apartment, the deposit courtesy of her gallery sale, not Cole's charity. Cooking dinner together, they'd laugh about the fiasco of misread recipes, forging new memories untainted by secrets. At each step, the delicate question lingered: could love truly conquer the wide gap between them? Or would new tensions inevitably arise, reawakening the pains of betrayal and difference? Eventually, their bond crystallized beyond doubt. Vera sold more paintings, establishing a small but growing reputation. She moved to a slightly larger loft with better lighting, allowing her to host mini art workshops. She also accepted a partial scholarship at the local arts academy, continuing her craft. Cole, beaming with pride, stood by her side, occasionally dropping her off or picking her up, content to be part of her success while respecting her independence. In turn, Vera attended a few Harrington Holdings events openly as Cole's partner. No more subterfuge. Some eyebrows rose, but the sincerity in Cole's eyes when he introduced her as the bravest, most authentic soul he'd met left critics speechless. She refused to let the company's grandeur intimidate her, using humor to diffuse any awkward small talk about stock markets or billionaire gossip. The press snapped photos, labeling her the secret muse or the woman who tamed Harrington. She endured it for Cole's sake, laughing privately that tabloids had no clue about the real depth of their connection, how her unwavering belief in him had ignited a healing he never thought possible. One crisp autumn evening, after a philanthropic gala where Vera showcased a collaborative piece celebrating local youth art, Cole led her to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. Starry skies twinkled overhead. He turned to her, heart pounding with both love and lingering gratitude. "Vera," he whispered, "do you remember the day we met? You were painting, so lost in your art that you barely heard me approach." She nodded, lips curving at the memory. "You were the fascinated stranger." He inhaled, emotion tightening his throat. "Since then, you've seen me at my rawest, my hidden grief, my questionable plan. You've forgiven my deception, challenged me to be better, loved me for who I am." He pulled out a small velvet box, eyes shining. "I want to spend my life proving you made the right choice." Tears shimmered in her eyes as he opened the box, revealing a ring with a subtle, tasteful design. "Vera Martin, will you marry me?" he asked, voice trembling. She gasped, tears coursing down her cheeks. Despite all the ups and downs, the heartbreak, the differences, this moment felt undeniable. She nodded vigorously, laughter mingling with sobs. "Yes, Cole, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, exhaling a long-held breath of relief. They embraced under the starlight, the city lights twinkling far below, as though the entire metropolis applauded. Their wedding was a modest, heartfelt ceremony. No million-dollar extravaganza, just a curated guest list of close friends, family, and creative souls from Vera's circles. Daniel served as best man, cracking jokes about Cole's incognito fiasco. The small countryside vineyard they chose bustled with bright wildflowers, local wine, and laughter echoing under open skies. Vera wore a simple lace gown, her hair woven with a few delicate flowers. Cole, in a tailored suit, stood before a scenic orchard as they exchanged vows referencing trust, authenticity, and the improbable journey that began with a fake identity. At the reception, she teased him about their first lunches at cheap diners, how he pretended not to know the difference between fancy wine brands. He teased her about the paint stains she always had on her arms. Guests laughed, tears of joy glistening in many eyes. Over time, they built a balanced life, bridging generosity with self-determination. Vera's career soared, her new studio thrived, and she occasionally curated smaller artists for Harrington Holdings' philanthropic showcases. Cole's corporate realm softened, adopting more inclusive hiring and forging alliances with local artisans. Each day they remembered the lessons gleaned from illusions, that genuine love demands honesty, humility, and seeing someone's heart, not their net worth. On the anniversary of Vera's first gallery show, they relaxed in their cozy shared loft, sipping herbal tea, reminiscing about how they nearly lost each other to secrets. The ring on Vera's hand glinted under a vintage lamp, a testament to how empathy and second chances can outshine deception. A swirl of fresh paintings lined the walls, her next collection in progress. And on the opposite side, resting on a shelf, was a small framed photo capturing them side by side. Him in battered jeans, her in paint-splattered overalls. The first snapshot from their days in the broke identity era. Both smiling wide, oblivious to how monumental their connection would become. In that moment, they knew. Sometimes pretending to be poor might risk heartbreak, but it can also unveil the purest kind of devotion, a love that transcends wealth, anchored instead in the genuine spirit of two souls who found each other in a swirl of paint, lies, and hope, forging an authentic forever along the way.